Hi, and welcome to the closing keynote for today. I'm very proud to introduce you Rolf Molich, who will be talking on usability. I won't take much of his time, giving him the opportunity to present himself. Would like to ask you that if you have any questions, to post them in the Q&A section so I can transport them to Rolf at the end of the session. And do not forget to also give your review scores because you can win some free ebooks by the award that is handed over by some of our sponsors, Pact and Manning. So, Rolf, I leave the word to you, and I'll put your slides to the screen.
Hello and welcome. I'm Rolf Molich. In the beginning, everything was dark. Then the system asked the user to enter a password. The user suggested cabbage. The system responded, sorry, the password must be more than 8 characters. The user tried again, boiled cabbage. The system responded, sorry, the password must contain 1 numerical character. The user tried again, 1 boiled cabbage. The system answered, sorry, the password cannot have blank spaces. I'm sure that some of you recognize situations like this. The user, a little more impatiently, went on. 50 fracking boiled cabbages. Actually, fracking is not what the user wrote. He wrote something else, which, since this is a very decent conference, I will not show you. So I changed it into fracking. The system responded, sorry, the password must contain at least 1 uppercase character. Now the user started to get a little bit upset. And the user said 50 fracking boiled cabbages. System responded, sorry, the password cannot use more than 1 uppercase character consecutively. The user then got a little bit upset. 50 fracking boiled cabbages showed up your arse if you don't give me access immediately. System responded, sorry, the password cannot contain punctuation. Finally, the user said, now I'm really getting, and so on and so forth. And some of you will probably say that the system now complained that the password was too long. That's one possible answer, but the system had an even more devilish reply, which is this one. Sorry, that password is already in use. So that's my introduction. Is the password administration working according to specifications? I think so. Is there a problem? I hope you will all agree with me, yes, there is indeed a problem. And this is an example of a usability problem. That is what my talk is about. Problems that are different from the ones that you may be used to seeing. Usability problems where the system works correctly, but the user just can't figure out what to do. Is a solution to this problem, or at least a partial solution to this problem, a pattern for new password? You can see the screen example. User enters the username and the password, and in the right-hand side of the window, the system provides advice and a password strength indicator. That is one way of solving the problem. There are other ways of solving it, but this is much more helpful than the other very inhuman conversation that you saw just a moment ago. So usability is about making the user interface more human. And that is what this talk is about. So maybe I should get around to introducing myself. I'm an independent usability consultant. I actually work my living. I earn money by teaching the happy message about usability to other people. I have my own consultancy. I live and work in Copenhagen, Denmark. I also sometimes travel outside of Denmark to communicate the happy message. I do some work about UX certification. I will get back to that a little bit later on. I have an MSc in software engineering, which is slowly getting a little bit dusty. It's actually from 1974, so it's almost 50 years old. Wow. I've written some large, huge software programs many years ago. Right. You might also say, like some of you could probably say, my work is to solve problems. So why did the change password problem happen? Well, probably because of opinion-based design, or maybe because there was no usability testing. So I'm going to introduce later on in this talk the topic of usability testing and also the topic of usability engineering. How do you avoid problems like this? The point is, everyone, and I mean everyone, has opinions about user interfaces. Usability professionals like me have few opinions. If someone comes and asks me a question about a user interface, Rolf, should the button be placed in the upper right corner or in the lower left corner? I would say, gee, I don't know. Interesting question. Let's ask the users. So usability professionals have few opinions. They rely on data, for example, from field studies and usability tests. And if you don't know what field studies and usability tests are, don't worry, I'll explain that in a moment. Opinion-based design is very common. Sayings like, I have worked for this organization for more than 35 years. I know our users and I know what they want. Happens so often that we actually have a name for it. We call a person like that a hippo, the highest paid person's opinion. If you design systems with hippos, based on opinions, you may achieve disastrous results, systems that work correctly, but that the users can't use. Like in the title of my talk, if the users can't use it, it doesn't work, which is a famous saying by one of my colleagues, one of my highly esteemed colleagues, Susan Drake. Now, you may smile at the password problem and say, yeah, okay, very funny, but it's not really a serious problem. Let me give you another example, which I actually think is quite serious. Here you have a page that we tested very carefully about 10 years ago, but the problem is still typical. It's from a US website that's called U-Haul. On U-Haul, you can rent a truck, and in the United States, you are allowed with your personal driver's license to drive a truck. So you can rent a truck if you want to move from one place to another. Now take a look at this screen. Which damage protection would you choose? Well, if you're like most of our usability test participants, you would probably choose Safe Move because it's the most popular, it's cheaper than Safe Move Plus, and it's actually emphasized. Note that they do not recommend it. They are clever enough. U-Haul is clever enough not to directly recommend it. But, and here's the usability problem, there's a snag to it. The problem is test participants and most other users were not informed that SafeMove includes only a very limited liability coverage in the order of $5,000. So they could have made an uninformed disastrous choice. Now, if you have a liability insurance of only $5,000 and in the United States you hit someone and hurt them and it's your fault, then you could easily be liable for up to $1 million. So you could be totally ruined because of this usability problem. But again, it is working according to specifications, so it's a usability problem in this case, which in rare cases might generate disastrous results. Now, I talk a lot about usability, but I try not just to talk about usability, but also to practice it in my talk. So I encourage you to participate in this small quiz. Grab your smartphone, grab your tablet, grab your personal computer, go to sendsteps.me, like it says in the instruction in the bottom. It's going to ask you for a code and simply enter Anna and then vote for the answer that you think is correct. Oh, it seems that nothing is happening. Let me just repeat it again. Grab your smartphone, go to sendsteps.me and enter the code that says Anna. I can see that a few people are starting to log in now. I'm going to give it a little bit of time because it probably came as a surprise to you. And then select one of the answers. One of the answers describes a usability problem. The others do not. So which one is the right answer? Yeah, cheers. Oh, some people are answering in the chat channel. That's not the idea. The idea is you should, once you have logged in, once you have typed Anna, all the questions should appear on your screen. And then select the right one. I'm going to try it here on my own computer just to make sure that it works. Usually it would show the number of answers in the lower right-hand corner. And for some strange reason, it doesn't update that figure. So right now I can see that about 380 people have logged into the system, but it seems that the number of answers is not showing up. And actually, I cheated a little bit because I entered my own answer. Yes, I'm very pleased that people are helping each other in the chat channel. So I'll give it 30 more seconds, and then I will proceed with my talk. But you can still go to use your favorite browser, point it at sendsteps.me, hit return, and then it's going to ask you for a code. Enter Anna, and then you will see the questions displayed on your screen. When you have the answers, click at the one that you think is more correct than the other ones. Right, so let's take a look at the answers. I hope that there are some answers. Oh, yes, there are. Very good. Right, so D is the right answer. Usability is about speaking the user's language. So if the website uses expressions like CDW, which means collision damage waiver, and liability insurance, which most users do not understand, that is indeed a usability problem. It is not a usability problem, but a problem with something else. If the users arrive and the car that they actually reserved is not there, if the displayed prices are incorrect, that is not a usability problem either. Right, let me move on. Let's first look at what are users. Well, there's some people, and I don't agree with them, but there are some people who say users are pests with requests. I think a much more constructive way of looking at this is saying users are those funny things that make it possible for us to pay you. So if the users are not happy with the system, then you might have a problem. And that's why I keep saying again and again, the title of my talk, if the users can't use it, it doesn't work. Right. So I'm afraid I will have to bother you a little bit with a few definitions. Don't worry, it's only 3 or 4 slides, then it will be all over. Here's the definition of usability from the ISO standard 9241-11, International Standards Organization. Usability is the extent to which an interactive system can be used by specified users to achieve specified goals with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in a specified context of use. Now, you might well say that is a little bit difficult to understand. That is not usable. But don't worry, I have a more popular definition here. What it says is essentially, can the product do what I want it to do? Not what the marketing people want it to do, not what the management wants it to do, but what I, the user who pays for this, want to do. And if it can do what I want to do, can I figure out how to do it? Also, can it do what I want really fast? Because when I go to a banking website, I really want the answers fast. I don't want to be entertained. Is a product pleasant to use? That's the satisfaction component. I think that is a lot easier to understand, and it's a popular interpretation of usability. So usability, can it do what I want? Can it do it fast? Is it nice? Is it pleasant to use? Here's a website, regardless of your political observance. Here's a highly usable website. Very simple, the things you can do, join us, donate, very clearly shown. the message, "Make America Great Again." Regardless, usability has nothing to do with whether you like this person or whether you believe in making America great again. But it's highly usable. The other animal is user experience. And the definition of user experience is a user's perceptions and responses that result from the use or anticipated use of a system, product, or service. Now, user experience, roughly speaking, is an extension of usability. With usability, we look at the interaction between the user and the system. That's the center column. Usability, satisfaction, effectiveness, and efficiency, like I showed you on the previous slide. That's the actual use. User experience is also what happens before I use the product and what happens afterwards. Now think of an e-commerce website. An e-commerce website, you see advertisements, you hear friends talking about the website. That's the expectation. Then you actually use it. That's usability. And then what happens afterwards is, after use, the fulfillment of expectations. So we have the full user journey, the full customer journey represented here in user experience. Here's an example. A good UX, an online streaming service, offers a 1-month free trial period. No credit card is required. The free trial is automatically terminated after a month. The user is informed about the termination 1 week in advance and given the option to register a credit card to pay to continue their subscription. Now, I think that's a good UX. Let's compare that to a not so good UX, a UX with room for improvement. It looks similar, but in this one, you have to register a credit card as part of the sign-up process, and it's not going to give you any warning before it actually takes money from your account after 1 month. That's a not so good user experience. But both of these are user experiences, good and one with room for improvement. Here's an example from a Danish system. And what I really want you to pay attention to is the message. An error has occurred, which is a usability disaster because it's not helpful in any way. An error has occurred. Too bad. We're not saying what error has occurred. We're not saying how you can move on, how you can get on. So here's very simple usability advice. Always try to imitate a human dialogue. Many human system dialogue fail because they're inhuman. So here's some guidelines for usable error message. Make them constructive. Instead of blaming the user, tell them how to move on, what to do. Make them comprehensible. I'm sure you will agree with me that error OA45 is not very comprehensible. It might be comprehensible to a systems programmer. It's not helpful to the end user. And make it precise. Don't just say something went wrong or an error occurred, but say, for example, instead, the pickup date, December 16, 2022, must be before the return date. Note how the last message actually uses examples to help make the message more clear. Of course, the disadvantage with these error messages is they're more complicated to write. They take more time. Something went wrong is a universal error message. It's the one error message that will call all error situations in your program. So if you want to be really lazy, go for something went wrong. If you want to be helpful to your users, if you want to make sure that your users can actually use the system, go for more precise, comprehensible, and constructive messages. I'm saying this, and this is a particular pet of mine, I'm saying this because I often see systems fail because of bad error messages. It's the first thing I check if I only have a short time to evaluate the usability of a system. Look at the error messages. Here's a totally different explanation or interpretation of usability. It's Steve Crook's book, Don't Make Me Think. I actually think it's a very good book. I recommend it. It's about 200 pages. It's humorous, and he explains things a lot better than I can do. So, recommend it. Right. So, next point, usability test. Well, here's actually a simple example of a usability test. We have a user sitting to the left, working on a system. You can see the system on the screen. And we have a moderator sitting to the right. It's a lady who turns her back on the on the camera, taking notes of what the user can figure out. So a usability test, the formal definition is it's a usability evaluation that involves representative users who perform specific tasks with the interactive system to enable us to identify and analyze usability problems or to measure effectiveness, efficiency, and user satisfaction. Remember, effectiveness, efficiency, and user satisfaction were the components of usability. We don't just test with one user. We test with several users, typically 5, 6, even up to 10 users. I want to show you an example. I will show you a video made by the Nielsen Norman Group and kindly made available for public viewing to see how this could work in practice. You will see the test participant to the left, the moderator to the right, the moderator in the middle, and to the right you will see the human computer. The human computer is necessary because what we're testing here is a paper prototype. So let's have a go.
Thank you for being here. We're in the early phase of designing a website, which is a car rental website. And as part of the process, I'm going to be giving you some activities to do and asking you for your feedback as you work on the website. The purpose of the study is to learn more about how we can improve the usability of the website we're designing. You'll be working on a website which happens to be on paper. This is Cara. She will be playing our computer today and she'll be handing you the screens. So imagine that this is your computer area. All your screens will be placed here. To interact with the website, what you would do is to use this pen. Point to things you would normally click on, and then go ahead and use this pen to fill in what you would normally write. Now, you might encounter areas that we don't have a screen for, and that's okay. You'll get a screen that says under construction. When this happens, don't worry about it. We'll guide you through the process. Remember, we're not evaluating you in any way. We're evaluating the website. Sure. This is your task. Please read this out loud.
Okay. You want to take a road trip with your family and need to rent a car. The goal is to get something for under $100 per day. Use the website to reserve a car. Below are some of the details that you might need. Okay.
Do you have any questions so far?
No.
Okay, so let's begin on this page here.
Okay. So I assume this is the home page for the blue car rental. The first thing I would do is click on Make a Reservation. Okay, step 1, make a reservation. Okay, so pickup location. I figure it would be at an airport, but I will click on the arrow to see where else I could pick it up. Okay, airport, US address, or popular landmark. Oh, okay, so if I was going on vacation somewhere, I could get that. But I'm going to select airport. And drivers under 26, I'll say no. Okay, and it's funny, I would have thought it would have been a continue button, and it looks like it says submit. And it makes me kind of think, like, am I submitting the whole reservation right now, or am I just going to the next stage? I would expect it to show me the economy cars next. So I'll click submit.
Okay.
Oh, looks like maybe I broke something. Error, you must select a return date. Oh, I didn't resolve. Okay, I'll click OK. Looks like I forgot to select my drop-off date. So I'll click on the calendar again. Okay, and I'm dropping it off on July 19th. Click on July 19. And the time, click on the it'll be 10 a.m. And now I'll click submit. Okay, so the economy cars in step 2, choose a car. Okay, I've got my Chevy Aveo, Nissan Versa, Toyota Corolla. Well, I'm actually really confused because all the bullets are the same for all the cars. 2 to 4 doors, 4 to 5 passengers, 3 suitcases. So this isn't actually helpful for me to distinguish between them. So I'd have to rely on the images themselves and the prices. So let me go back and take a look at the midsize then. I'll click.
Yep, I'm back. This is Rolf again. The video is over. You can actually get the whole video, which is about 13 minutes long, from the website of the Nielsen Norman Group, nngroup.com. They until about a few years ago, it costs money, but now they have actually released it for the common good. Some of you may have noticed that there were usability problems that we found on this one. First, the user didn't understand why it said submit. He said it should have been continue instead. And then he pointed out that the descriptions of all the cars were identical. So he didn't really know what to choose. I'm showing you this because I want to make it clear that we can test systems, the usability of systems, very early. It doesn't take very long. It takes a few hours to get a good prototype on paper or using one of the fantastic tools that are available for building prototypes these days. Right, so the core of a usability test. Well, we ask participants to solve realistic tasks with as little help from the moderator as possible. We're not showing participants how to do tasks. We're not interested in their opinions. We're not interested in hippos or anything like that. We always have more than one participant because one participant is not enough. Some participants turn out not to be typical or representative at all. And very importantly, the moderator's personal opinions about usability problems are not relevant. So whenever I do a usability test, I leave my opinions outside of the room. So here's an example. Ryanair, some of you may like them, some of you may not like them. We have investigated the usability of their website very carefully. Here's some of the test tasks that we could use on Ryanair's website. Book a one-way flight with Ryanair from London to Vilnius on November 1st. Find out how much cabin baggage you can bring on the flight from London to Vilnius. I think that's a highly relevant task. It better be highly usable how to find out this information. You can't fly on November 1st after all. Change the date of the booking to November 3rd. And here comes the next test question. Please give it a try. Which one of the following is a valid usability test task for Ryanair's website for travelers? And again, if you want to participate in this question, go to sendsteps.me, log in with Anna, and then select the test question that's relevant for a usability test. All right. C is the right answer. A is too imprecise. It's too hazy. Play around on Ryanair's website. Is it easy to use? That's asking for opinions. C is asking for a specific piece of information. So A is imprecise also because users wouldn't normally do that. They would not play around on the website. They would try to book a flight directly, or they would have a question like, find out how long before departure you have to be at the gate. Ryanair's most recent press release is only of interest to journalists. Ordinary users would hardly be interested in that. Right, so here's the core of a usability test. We have the preparations, then the users arrive and we conduct the usability test sessions, and finally we report the results. So we write a usability test plan, we create the test tasks, and we recruit the test participants. We do a briefing saying we're not testing you, we're testing the system. Whatever you do is right. We have a so-called pre-session interview where we learn about the participant. We ask them to solve the test tasks. And then finally, we ask very briefly about their opinion about mostly what they considered good and not so good about the website. Finally, we write the usability test report. This sounds easy, but actually, I'm teaching sometimes a 3-day course about usability testing. So it's not so simple after all if you wanted to give reliable result. But the approach is quite tolerant. Even newbies will get good results from it. So try it out once. Right, so finally, user-centered development. Well, here's a popular version of it. Number one, if you want to do user-centered design, start by discovering, get out of the building to talk with people and discover what is the problem, what is the real problem. Then prototype what you assume is a solution. Evaluate it, and this is the one that I really like. I didn't invent this myself. Watch people use it and find out how wrong you were. And that is indeed true. In most cases, you will not be wrong, you will be terribly wrong. But fortunately, when you evaluate it, you will learn early that you were wrong. Then repeat the above. Solution designers often assume they're done after evaluation. And then it never ends. Of course, that's not true. It ends when the requirements are fulfilled. It doesn't have to be perfect because, as you probably know, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Let me show that graphically. I sometimes have a fictitious company called Delta Market that I use in my examples. It's a supermarket, it's a chain of supermarkets. And regularly the usability manager cries out, "Goop, get out of the building." And here you have the usability professionals running out of the building to talk to users in the supermarkets out there where the company makes their money. And also, of course, talking to the so-called stakeholders, the co-workers who work every day in the supermarket. They're not users, direct users of the system, but they know their users very well. And finally, we have this guy here, Huxley, to the left, who's observing a user who is testing out a new product, a new self-checkout system. And look at the expression on Huxley's face, this, oh. And that's what I really like personally about doing usability tests. These dough moments, sorry, I hit my glasses. These dough moments where I suddenly realize, hey, oh, I overlooked that. But how good that the users helped me realize that there was a problem. Let's return to the Hippo for a moment, for the last time. Here we have a team meeting with the product manager, left, and the product manager utters a hippo. I want a carousel on the home page. Now, the organization is getting a little more mature with respect to usability when someone actually dares to call out this and to question unsubstantiated opinions. All right, so I'm almost done. Few pointers here. You might call it a shameless self-promotion. If you want to know more, there are free training materials. We have the CPUXF curriculum, usability and user experience, foundation level. It's about 60 pages. And the good news is it's absolutely free for self-study. We also provide free quiz questions that allow you to check your understanding. And there's a pointer to where you can get this free information. If you want to know more about usability testing, we also have a curriculum about that. And not only do we have it, but the ISTQB also has it, the CTFL usability tester curriculum about usability testing. If you want to know more, the book by Steve Crook, which I mentioned previously, and another book by my colleague, Carol Barnum, Usability Testing Essentials. It's quite a thick book, a number of pages, but it's very thorough and written in an entertaining, and you might even say in a usable style. Right, so we're approaching the end, just a few more slides. Of course, an important part of usability is getting the user's opinions. Now, you are my users, so I would appreciate if you had time to evaluate this talk by one final time logging into sendsteps.me with Anna and then selecting A, B, C, D, or E to reflect your opinion about this talk. I learned from one of the other presentations that I watched that if you want to make a really good presentation, you have to have a picture of a cat. Now, I didn't know that, so I will have to add that to my next talk. But actually, my final slide is rather dull, as you will see in just a moment. I'll just let this go for a few more seconds. Right, so. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good. So that's my summary, a very dull picture, but it actually underscores my point that if you want to do a usable presentation, the summary slide should not be just be thank you, any questions, but it should be a dull summary of what it is that I've been trying to tell you during the past 45 minutes. Well, again, thank you very much for your patience, and I'm looking forward to hearing any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolf. Looking at the lively conversation in the chat, I think a lot of people enjoyed your presentation. The results also shown the same thing. They loved your humor. They're looking forward to the books you've recommended. If they have the same sense of humor, it will have a huge sale, I believe.
I'm afraid that will be a little bit disappointed because the curriculum, almost by definition, is a little more dull.
Yeah.
So if they really want to have something that's both serious and funny, read Steve Crook's book, the one about Don't Make Me Think. That's funny. And I saw that several people also recommended it in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Rolf. I'm going over the questions as they appeared in Pine. People have the ability to vote for questions, so I'm going to start with the ones on the top. We're already over time, and I don't think nobody will mind going a little bit over time to hear some of the answers to the questions people had. The most popular question is, what was the most disastrous usability issue you have seen or heard about? And what was the funniest one? So actually, there are two questions.
Yeah. The most serious one is actually the one that I showed you. That is, I've heard people talk about other usability problems, but the one about the liability, renting a truck without ensuring that the liability coverage was adequate. That's the most serious that I ever heard, that I ever encountered personally. There have been some other problems that I have heard of, but not seen myself, about medical equipment where you could give an overdose of radiation or an overdose of insulin to a patient, effectively killing or hurting that patient very seriously. Or a broker system where you could enter a wrong amount and you would buy an enormous amount of shares, which could actually ruin you. But I've only read these from second or third hand descriptions. The funniest one, whoops. I recall one. There was, which I actually thought was quite funny. We had a screen. I don't remember anymore what the system was about. And the usability problem was that people overlooked a sentence or an instruction on the screen. And I wrote that in my usability test report saying people don't notice that. And the next version I saw of the screen, the text was blinking. And that actually made sure that people did notice that instruction. But on the other hand, it was a disaster because people could not concentrate on the rest of the screen.
Yeah, it's fixing one issue and creating a lot of other issues with that solution. A second question, who should be responsible for testing the UX aside the feedback from the QA team?
Well, I actually, I'm not totally sure I understand the question, but let me try to answer it anyway. I think usability professionals are a new kind of people that should be engaged in teams. They're not the same as testing professionals. I mean, the way in which testing is described here. This is not to say that testing professionals, people who test systems in the traditional way, that they cannot be good usability testers. But often usability testing requires some empathy for the users. It requires a certain curiosity. Now, I noticed in some of the other talks that I've been listening to that these are certainly also properties that you would be looking for when hiring testing people. And I'm very glad to hear that. But I would say usability testing or user experience testing is a new profession that we should make sure that we include. And there are several skills involved in that. One is going out, talking to users. Another one is user requirements engineering. And the third one is usability evaluation.
Yeah. Thank you, Rolf. I think there's time for one more question. How can the QA team avoid biases while performing usability tests, considering the team is already familiar with the requirements and functionalities of the product?
Yeah, that is, I appreciate that question. I think it is very important that you don't usability test your own baby. Because just like you said in the question, they have lots of biases. They know, oh, we used a lot of effort to build that particular feature. Now the users don't like it. We probably better try to downplay that. So what I usually recommend is that you bring in someone from the outside. Sometimes people bring in me, but that's not what I'm advocating. I'm simply saying that if you have several testers in a company, you should definitely use usability testers who have not been involved with the development of the product in question. But on the other hand, since I also advocate that the perfect is the enemy of the good, I would say if the alternative is that the product will not be tested at all, then I would say reluctantly, go ahead and test it yourself after all, but be very aware of the biases that might creep in.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rolf. It was a very interesting talk, and I think everyone, or at least most people, agree with me when I say that it was a delight to have you as a closing keynote speaker for today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And if anybody wants a copy of my slides, send me an email. It's very simple, just like I preach usability. So my email address is rolf@molich.dk. Not rolf@molich.com. Don't send anything to that. rolf@molich.dk. I love to get emails. So send me questions, comments, criticism, suggestions for improvement, rolf@molich.dk. Thank you.
I think somebody will post your email address also in the chat so everybody can copy paste it if it is already sent in 10 times at the moment. Okay. Some final words, because these were the talks of the first conference day, and I hope you enjoyed it and collected some golden tips. Once again, we would like to thank our sponsors, Keysight Technologies, EPAM, JetBrains, M47 Labs, Tessena, and Mostly AI, today's speakers and fellow hosts, and of course, thank you all for joining. Let's meet again tomorrow, where a great group of speakers again will provide their insightful and thought-provoking sessions. See you tomorrow.